basically they were more likely to agree with statements like sex is like a game where one person wins and the other person loses. So if you're using a dating app, you're more likely to say yes to that kind of question. So in a way, I think you're right.
There's a status element to that. I mean, there's the old trope of notches in the bed frame, and among competitive adolescent males, there's no reason. There's every reason to be competitive about how much you can drink and how many people you can lure into bed. I mean, even if you don't necessarily believe that personally, at a deep level, and maybe you suffer for it emotionally to some degree, even though you might obscure that from yourself, it's certainly something to score points with your peers. And there's plenty of that kind of, that competitive bantering in adolescent, especially adolescent male culture. And I mean, it's not surprising to some degree because adolescent males have to figure out how to navigate the sexual landscape. And they're going to do that in all sorts of awkward and finally unproductive ways. It's not an easy thing to bind or to regulate properly. But I mean, these technologies like Tinder is a transformative technology. And it's radically underestimated in terms of its potency because it produces hyper-successful predatory males and reduces rejection. It eliminates rejection because, I mean, you can be totally rejected, in which case you're a failure on Tinder. But in normal pre-mating interaction, let's say, there's a high probability of rejection, especially on the part of males. And that technology... Well,
there's actually research on this.
Yes.
On Tinder.
Yes.
So there's research basically showing that. So on Tinder, women they like, swipe right. They like the profiles of only 4% of the men that they see on the app. Whereas for men, when they see female profiles, they swipe right or like more than 60%. That's 60% of the profiles they see.
So that's really worth concentrating on because that's a great example of hypergamy. Right? So women mate across and up success hierarchies, and men mate across and down. Right. So, and the women like men who are about 4 years older, cross-culturally. They like men who manifest signs of success, as well as being handsome and personable and all of that. And the reason for that, as far as I can tell, is that they're looking to equalize the economic disparity that exists because women take a harder hit from sex and pregnancy than men. So they're looking to equalize that. And no wonder they're looking for someone who's competent. This is for long-term mating, who's competent and generous, right? You want both of those. So competence would be intelligence, general cognitive ability, and the markers that go along with that. They want conscientiousness or openness, as well as other desirable personality traits. And they want generosity, honesty, all of those. But so they're looking for someone who can provide. Well, it's not because they're greedy precisely. It's because, well, they're going to put themselves in a more vulnerable position if they have a child. And we know this because even affluent women who have a child by themselves or who get divorced tend to drop down the socioeconomic hierarchy a fair bit, which is, of course, why alimony payments and all of that are necessary. So this hypergamy means women are much more selective in their mating than men are, and that's true cross-culturally. And it's not surprising because they pay a bigger price for sex. It's more dangerous for women because they can get pregnant, and it might be more dangerous emotionally as well. And I believe that would be a reflection of their higher levels of agreeableness and higher levels of negative emotionality. So women do put themselves at risk more, and that might be why there's such a intense debate about what constitutes consent on campuses, despite these beliefs in polyamory and all of these things. But so anyways, on Tinder, as you said, women select 4% of the men.
Yes.
So that means,
and I would imagine that 4% is very high up on what you're calling, the success hierarchy. I have a friend, a good-looking guy. He was very active on Tinder for a while, and he accumulated more than 20,000 matches on the app.
20,000.
20,000, and he was so successful that Tinder pinpointed him early on and gave him all kinds of free perks and bonuses and lifted his radius restrictions, gave him the Tinder Gold app or whatever version of it, basically trying to entice him to continue to use the app. They wanted to entice him.
This is so amazing.
They never want you to leave.
These are unbelievably pernicious and vicious broad-scale social experiments that are far more potent than anything like government policy. Well, he's in Genghis Khan territory. with 20,000.
I don't know if
it's
if
really
he slept with all 20,000.
Yeah, well,
Maybe
my
10,000.
suspicions are he tried. And I know
he'll get a kick out of that.
That records for like athletes, for example, and movie stars, there's some of the men have reportedly slept with thousands of women. Yes, Wilt Chamberlain, and there's others who are in the same category, but they're men who have women throwing themselves at them all the time, lining up for them. And I've read biographies of people who had that sort of thing happen as well.
But that's not the typical male experience.
No, the typical male experience is all rejection.
Nothing.
Exactly.
Right. They might get a couple matches a week.
Right. So you see what's happening is that Tinder is one of the forces that's transforming monogamy into polygamy. And the problem with polygamy is that it follows a Pareto distribution, like the distribution of wealth, is that some tiny minority of men get all the sexual opportunity and all the rest get virtually none. And that is a recipe for social instability.